Okay, here's what I want you to do today. First of all, I want you to open up the journal entry direction guide right here, along with your reading notes. After you finish reading to the end of chapter 1, I'd like you to work on the remaining sections of the journal entry guide or the reading notes. So if you scroll down on these directions to symbols, what I want you to do with the symbols listed on your paper is I'd like you to take some guesses about what you think they could represent. So remember that what a symbol represents is going to be an abstract concept. So an idea that's difficult to experience physically, like an emotion or a concept. So just you can look things up on the internet if you want to, or you can take some guesses as to what you think they mean. The key to figuring out a symbol is to look at the context in which that symbol is used and use that to pick out which translation or which concept it might be representing. Just do the best that you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, it never is with symbols. Um, when you explain them, try to explain them specifically enough that I can follow your thinking. In the next section, I want you to work with the idea of a theme. Below, I have a list of themes that are running throughout the story. Not all of them are introduced in the first chapter. Take a look at this list and choose one of them. Please do not choose the American dream concept. The entire book is pointing to the American dream concept. What I'm asking you to do here is to specifically look at who is in chapter 1 and what is going on between them, and then try to find a connection to something in this list. When you pick one of these, I want you to write one paragraph. You're going to analyze how plot and character development help that theme can be conveyed to the reader. Make sure that you provide evidence from the story to back up your analysis. That means you're either going to quote or paraphrase someone or something from the story. When you do that, please put the page number in parentheses behind the sentence that contains your evidence. Okay? So a paragraph should be somewhere between 5 and 8 sentences long. Lastly, I'd like you to try to write some questions. You're only going to write 3. You're going to write one for each level of question. Questions for this unit basically come in 2 flavors and 3 levels. They're either going to be closed or open questions. Those are your 2 flavors. Or you're going to think of them as being level 1, 2, or 3. Now, here's the difference. Level 1 questions are closed questions for the most part. That means that there's really only one type of answer that you can give to them that will be valid. So, a lot of times these questions will start with like, what did or where did, like, what happened when the men first entered the scene, or where did the men go when they first entered the scene. There you would be able to go into the book and identify a specific response to each of those styles of questions. You're only going to write one of these. These are the easiest types of questions to write. You're going to write one level 2 question, which is an analysis question. These are a little harder to write, but these are open-ended questions, meaning there's several possibilities for how you could answer the question, and you may need to infer something. The answer is probably not going to be right there in the text. It may be in a few different spots. You have to add up information and in order to get the answer. So these questions typically are asking the listener to explain why something happened, why characters are acting a certain way, or why certain images show up regularly. Notice that each of these questions is asking the reader to look for a pattern in something. That's typically what a level 2 question would do. Like, why does Lenny play with the water in the pond in the opening scene? What is that trying to show us? The answer could be a couple different things. It could be something that we talked about in class a few days ago, but that's not exactly directly answered by the text. You have to infer some things in order to answer it. A level 3 question is a synthesis question. These questions go beyond the bounds of the story typically. So they're inspired by something or someone in the story, but they're asking the listener to connect to something outside of the story. So, like a universal problem, something that might be related to what's happening in the story. So, for example, let's say I wanted to ask a question that is about um, people that are kind of like George and Lenny in the opening scene, the pair of them. Maybe I want to ask something about them as if they are symbolic. So I might say something like, how does society treat people like George and Lenny? Or I might say something like, um, what are some of the social attitudes that people have towards migrant workers like George and Lenny from Of Mice and Men? Typically, these are broad questions. Sometimes you can turn these questions into a statement, like, "Tell me more about social attitudes towards people with mental or physical disabilities." And again, the answer is not in the text. It could be connected to the text, but the full answer is coming from outside of the text, more in the experience of people and in or out of a culture. So, level 1 questions are closed questions that connect to the text. Level 2 questions analyze something in the text, ask you to break it apart and explain how it works. And level 3 questions are synthesis questions, where you're joining together your knowledge of the real world and your understanding of the text that you're reading to ask the listener to do something with that connection, to explain something with that connection. You're going to write one of each of these 3 questions at the end of your note sheet. All right. So we talked about symbols, we talked about themes. Here's where you're going to write your sample questions. Please complete this as best you can during the class period today. If you need time outside of school to finish this, you can have till the end of today, but please don't put this off till Sunday or Monday. We're going to be using the notes that you come up with here to help you on the review questions for Chapter 1 on Monday when we return to class together. Thank you for your time. I will see you on Monday.